We leave Surah Al-Baqarah and we now go to Surah Al-Sad. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses a prophet. His name is Dawood alayhi salam. And this is what he says to him. Ya Dawood, inna ja'alnaka khalifatan fil ard. O Dawood, O David, we are establishing you on earth as Khalifa. Okay. Well, what are the implications? What are the functions? Here's the answer. فاحكم بين الناس بالحق. Don't forget these words, because we remember them in the grave. We remember them in the grave. Ya Dawood, we are placing you on earth, establishing you on earth as Khalifa, so that you might govern, so that you might rule, so that you might establish law on the basis of al-haq. So Khilafah is a state. Khilafah is a state in a territory in which there is governance. That's Khilafah. And in that state, governance is based on al-haq. Khilafah is a state in which there is rule over the people. The rule is based on truth. Khilafah is a state in which law is established. And the law is based on al-haq. From where does al-haq come? Is it from Punjab University or Qaid-e-Azam University? From where does al-haq come? Is it from CNN or Al Jazeera? Or does it come from Washington? Al-haq comes from Allah, whether they like it or whether they don't. It is difficult for the secularized mind to accept something like this. The truth comes from Allah. The truth is absolute. It doesn't change with every passing cloud. The truth is universal. It's not what's good for me is truth for me and what's good for you is truth for you, a secularized version of truth. That all values come from absolute truth, and therefore all values are unchanging and universal. This is poison for the graduate of the modern university. Therefore, a Khilafah state is a state in which rule or law or governance is based on truth, which has come from Allah. Full stop. Full stop. If you don't know the truth which has come from Allah, don't blame me. Blame yourself. It's there in a book. You can read so many more books in the world, but you wouldn't read this book, so don't blame me. If you read the book and you don't understand it, so go to someone who can teach you. Show some humility. It'll be beneficial for you. But the book says of itself, it's plain and clear like daylight. Yes, it says that there are two kinds of verses in this book. The first is the verse which is muhkam, plain and clear. All you need is tafsir. And this is the heart of the book. So the law must come from the heart of the book. The belief system must come from the heart of the book. So if you say to me that Allah appointed someone to succeed Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and Allah declared that rule must come from his family alone, and that is therefore a part of the religion, I say to you, would you kindly show me where it is in the Quran? Would you kindly show me where it is located in the Quran? Because the belief system must come from the Quran, and not just from the Quran, it must come from that part of the Quran which is muhkam, plain and clear. But Allah in His wisdom has placed in the Quran a second kind of verse, and that's called the mutashabiha, verses which have to be interpreted. And He did that because there's truth over here which they cannot penetrate. With all their PhDs from Temple University, they cannot penetrate the Quran, because there's one part of the Quran which has to be interpreted, and it can only be interpreted when Allah opens the door for interpretation. Secondly, that when an interpretation is given of the Quran, one must always declare Allah knows best, because you can be right and you can be wrong. The Quran goes on to say, "O Dawood, we have established you on earth as Khalifa. Hence establish governments, rule and law on the basis of truth. وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَىٰ. Do not, O Dawood, turn to any other source for rule, for governance. Don't follow your own agenda that you discuss in Parliament, and then Parliament decides what is to be governments and rule and law, disregarding what has come from Allah. Don't do that. This is the Khalifa, the Khilafah state. Because if you do that, فَيَدِلَّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. If you establish the state which decides that it has its own sovereignty, it will pass its own laws, it will govern as it chooses to govern, it disregards for Allah. فَيَدِلَّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. You will be misguided. You turn away from the way of Allah. Now listen to the end of the verse carefully, because it's going to be repeated in the grave. And one of the nice things of life is that everybody have to go in the grave one day. One of the nice things about life is that the oppressor also has to go in the grave one day to answer. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَدِلُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ لَهُمْ عَذَابٌ شَدِيدٌ بِمَا نَسُوا يَوْمَ الْحِسَابِ. Those who turn away from rule and governance and law based on truth which has come from Allah, and are therefore misguided from the way of Allah, for them Allah says there is terrible punishment, because they forgot, they were negligent about the day of accounting, the day of Hisab. This is the Khilafah state. And it was established by Nabi Dawood alayhi salam. What is the relationship of the Khilafah state with the rest of the world? Or rather, what is Islam's conception of an international order. It's not a subject which is normally taught in the Darul Uloom anymore. It used to be once upon a time, but now we've forgotten this subject. It's called Siyar. I know it because I'm a student of international relations. And as a student of international relations, I had to go to international relations in the Quran and the Hadith. And that's how I know the subject. Pax Islamica, or the Islamic conception of an international order. How does the Khilafah state relate with the rest of the world? We're just going to give you a little taste of the subject and move on. The world, or before I do, let me mention some names. So your homework. The famous scholar, he was also Indian. It's remarkable. It's remarkable how Islamic scholarship in India excelled. His name was Dr. Muhammad Hamidullah, and he hailed from Hyderabad, Deccan, so he's my Hamwatan. Dr. Muhammad Hamidullah wrote a book entitled The Muslim Conduct of State. Pakistani diplomat. Once upon a time you had Pakistani diplomats who were scholars of Islam. His name was Dr. Afzal Iqbal. And he wrote a book entitled Diplomacy in Islam. But the one who is most important of all is the Saudi scholar. Afzal Iqbal is Pakistani, Muhammad Hamidullah is Indian from Hyderabad, Deccan. Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman is Saudi Arabia. And he wrote a book on Islam and international, it was a PhD thesis, Islam and international relations. The world should be a world of salam. So says the Khilafah state. We want a world of peace and security. Did you hear anything about taking a sword and forcing all of mankind to become Muslim and other rubbish like that? Rubbish with a capital R? No. That's not there. The Khilafah state wants a world of salam. Allahu yad'u ila daris salam. A world of peace. A world of security. In which all of mankind, Muslims as well as non-Muslims, everybody have a chance to live in a state of peace and in security, not as what is happening in Yemen today. That is shameful. Poor, innocent Yemen. Not what is happening in Syria today. That is even more shameful. Not what is happening in so many other parts of the world, and our people are refugees. No. The Khilafah state wants a world which is a world of peace and of security. It's called Darus Salam. And when a certain part of the world is committing aggression or is oppressing people, then that part of the world will be declared Darul Harb.